Talk to someone who might know about that. Joining us now, Wisconsin Democratic Party Chairman Ben Wickler. Good to have you. You must be quite tired. I doubt you've slept, but tell us what happened last night.
I think voters in Wisconsin showed that this state is not for sale, and they showed the country. Susan Crawford showed the country that you can stand and fight for values that most Americans hold. The idea that the government should be by, of, and for the people, not for sale to the world's richest person. And you can win elections. You can swing margins. I think across the country, Democrats are waking up realizing they have an opportunity to fight for the country that they love. And Republicans need to push Elon Musk to the side, get him out of the White House, get him out of the Republican Party as fast as possible, or their jobs will be in danger. This ravaging that we've seen, rushing through the country, Social Security and everything else, this is a political disaster for the GOP, and they need to change course fast, or there's going to be a wave election that removes their majorities and removes their power.
Ben, good morning. I think even you would have to confess you're surprised by the margin last night, a double-digit win, 10 points, 55 to 45 as it stands so far this morning. What goes into that besides the Elon Musk factor? Is this a referendum, do you believe, on these first couple of months of the new Trump administration?
This is absolutely a referendum on the first couple of months of the Trump administration. It's a tribute to Susan Crawford, who never wavered, who never backed down, who was totally clear about the values that she would bring to this job and the fact that she would always act with integrity. She made this a referendum on character, as well as an election that spoke to people's fury and outrage about what this administration is doing. People want checks and balances. They don't want unconstrained power. This was a message that we tested. It was one of the most powerful messages, that Trump and Musk don't want any check on their power, and they were trying to remove that check through millions of dollars. Susan Crawford made very clear that there was an alternative to that kind of vision of total control by Trump and Musk. And I think that's something in non-judicial races that can be really powerful as well. I also think what you saw here was an upsurge of voter energy. We saw massive organizing. We more than doubled our record from the 2023 Wisconsin Supreme Court race. People were talking to friends and neighbors. Everywhere you went, people would be talking about Elon Musk, about Trump, about this feeling in the pit of their stomach that things were going wrong. And now they recognize that they have the power to fight back. And that genie cannot be put back in the bottle. I think we're going to see across the country people running for office, people getting involved in volunteering to power those wins. This is a moment of crisis for our democracy, and there's now hope.
Yeah, Ben, we certainly saw that burst of enthusiasm among so many Democrats in 2017. We'll see if this is the first step to that being replicated this time around. Let's talk about the economy and prices here. How big of a role did that play in this election? We know that per exit polls, that's a big reason why Donald Trump did win in November. But to this point anyway, he has not fulfilled his promises to drive prices down. And today is Liberation Day, and these tariffs may, in fact, do the exact opposite. Talk to us about how that was received there on the ground in Wisconsin.
So there are some voters who don't pay much attention to politics, but they either vote for more of the same or for change. And a lot of those voters, when prices were so high, for so long, and they didn't go down even when inflation fell, they voted for change. They've only gotten the wrong kind of change from this administration. Prices have kept going up. They certainly have not fallen, and the administration is veering us into a recession. So for voters that are just voting their pocketbook, there's nothing that Donald Trump has given them. He is actually moving people back into the arms of Democrats. But in an election like this, we asked voters, they don't see the state Supreme Court as centrally being a force about the economy. This was incredibly high turnout for a Supreme Court race, but nothing close to what we saw in the presidential race. These are voters who are tuned into what's going on. They were outraged by this attempt to buy Wisconsin. They're furious about the attempt to dismantle the American government, the attacks on Social Security, health care, on the Veterans Administration, and so much else. And they knew that Susan Crawford was someone that they could count on to represent values that most Wisconsinites hold. So I think this was an election that augurs the midterms pretty effectively, where voters have seen what Trump brings to the table. They want change, not just economically, but at every level. They think this administration is a disaster. They're going to fight back, and their voice is going to be heard in every election going forward.
Kathy, it's also very interesting. We talked about voter ID, and it's an 85% issue. 85% of Americans want voter ID, so that passed as a constitutional amendment. But the one race we haven't talked about in Wisconsin that shows how widespread this is, the pushback against Elon Musk and the pushback against everything people are seeing is Wisconsin's top education official last night was elected, and it was a Democrat. So a lot of times we hear that education is a Republican issue. Well, in this swing state last night also, the Democrat was reelected to continue running Wisconsin schools.
Yeah, so clearly, I mean, even beyond Susan Crawford, a good night for Democrats in Wisconsin. And Ben, my question for you would be, we've seen this civil war play out recently in the Democratic Party between the progressive wing of the party and the centrist wing of the party. It didn't seem to have played out that much during these races in Wisconsin over this cycle. If Wisconsin is to be replicated around the country for Democrats, how important is it that other states replicate what you did in a sense of the left not getting involved in these special elections?
I don't think that the most meaningful distinction within Democrats now is left versus center. I think it's actually going on your front foot and fighting back versus rolling over and playing dead. And I think what you saw in this election, in the superintendent of public instruction race, Jill Underly, totally against the dismantling of the Department of Education, totally for public schools. And Susan Crawford, she was against our state being bought, against the total abortion bans that Brad Schimmel supported, against the idea that the world's richest man should be able to flick aside any check or balance. These are broadly uniting ideas, and they're ideas held by progressives, by centrists, by everything in between. The critical thing is to go out there and fight. It is to make the case to voters. It is to be omnipresent, to communicate, to travel everywhere. And I think Democrats who do that, in the Big Tent coalition that makes up the Democratic Party, the anti-MAGA coalition, you're going to see a lot of success from people who have that energy and that conviction. That's what voters are looking for right now, that authenticity and clarity. And I think we're going to see a rainbow of Democrats who are able to win elective office against Republicans who are demonstrating their cowardice by the way they do whatever Elon Musk wants. We have a political disaster driven in part by the fact that no Republican can say no to Elon Musk, just as they're too afraid to say no to Donald Trump, even when Trump and Musk do things that their constituents hate. That is a political problem for the GOP. And Democrats, by saying yes to what voters actually care about, they have a solution for it.
Well, and last night, the face of the Republican Party was a man with a chainsaw who called Social Security a Ponzi scheme. Lots of luck with that. As Mika said, the man of the moment, chair of the Democratic Party of Wisconsin, Ben Wickler. Congratulations, and get some sleep.
Yeah.
Thanks so much.
All right.